Hey, what's up, everybody? Not sure where you guys are listening from. It could be Anchor, it could be an Apple podcast, Spotify podcast. You could be watching this on my YouTube channel, but welcome. This is the first, I'm not sure of how many, but definitely I wanted to come on and just talk about some things that I've been thinking about over the past few days. I recently watched the Joe Budden podcast featuring Chance the Rapper, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I usually enjoy Joe's podcast. He can be kind of crazy. The whole crew can be kind of crazy, but it's definitely conversations that are worth having about just music industry stuff. And its focus is mainly on hip hop, but it's a lot of things that apply to different contexts and different industries and stuff like that. But I enjoyed it. And what I particularly enjoyed was the fact that Chance was allowed to speak on what it means to be an independent artist. And it's a topic that many people don't really know too much about. They kind of shy away from, well, just artists in general, or anybody that's involved with music. A lot of people tend to shy away from the business practices of music. And it's something that usually is rooted in fear, lack of understanding, and it's not something that you should really shy away from. I think it's a beautiful thing, and music is something that can be very useful to you financially and even lucrative in some cases if you position yourself appropriately. I think that we get so caught up in being creative, or the plural version, creatives, and we kind of miss out on opportunities that are laid out specifically for what you do. Now, a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about applies to music, but you can apply this to several different industries, not limited to writing, graphic art, so on and so forth. If you have an idea, if you have what's called intellectual property or IP, it is something that can be used to your advantage. It's something that before you release it out into the world, it's something that you own. And being independent in whatever industry you're in means that you are in full control of that intellectual property and what happens to it once it is released into the world. And that's like a very basic way of, a mild way of putting it. But I love the way that Chance identifies being an independent and defines being an independent in terms of an artist. Now, when you're an independent artist, it means that you are in control of your masters, you own your copyrights, your music, everything that you create, you own, and you get to choose what is done with it. That is at the basic level what it means to be independent. And what the podcast showed me, and even some of the comments, reading some of the the YouTube comments and stuff like that, I realized how many people don't know what that entails. And even including Joe Budden himself, like he was trying to convince Chance that he's not independent, and he didn't really fully understand the terms of the definition. And this is like kind of a passion of mine, because for as long as I can remember, I've always wanted this ability. I always wanted the ability to own things. I have a strong desire for ownership in several aspects, but it really was birthed through my involvement in music. I always felt like whatever you create, you should own, you should control, and you should, be able to have that freedom to do what you need to do with it. And part of the interview that kind of troubled me was that even after Chance was explaining what it meant to be independent and explaining certain deals that he was involved in and stuff like that, they chalked it up to the companies that he was partnering up with, and not the individual making the choice to partner up with the company. That is part of that freedom that comes with being independent. Now, I'm not sure, I can't say that all of the people listening to me right now would know a major artist or somebody that's signed to a major label deal, or whatever the case may be. But what I can say is that 9 times out of 10, if you are signed to a major label deal, you have very little or no control over what happens to what you create. Simply because when you sign with the label, the music that you create becomes property of that record company. And one of the things that he said that which was really cool, he kind of went back in the days, he went back in the days to when vinyl used to be made. And he said part of the reason why you needed a record deal in the first place is because the record labels own the monopoly on the vinyl presses and the vinyl plants, the people that actually create the lacquer and make the records, you know, the physical vinyl. And because they own that, you had to go to the record company to get your record made. We're in a great age right now where I can take this audio that I just recorded on my phone. I know it sounds clean and all of that. I'm an engineer, so I use different sets of tools and things to make my stuff sound, you know, appropriate and radio ready. Shameless plug. So if you need any mixing work done, you know, hit me up. Go to my website, aahitmusic.com, and, you know, let's work. But I can take something that I recorded on my phone, on my computer, in a studio, whatever the case may be, and if I feel really strongly about it and I love it, I can upload it to iTunes. I don't need to go to a label. I don't need to have a record deal. I don't need to have some other company push my product out there. Now, in terms of getting your stuff promoted and stuff like that, that's different. Like there's other things that you can do to help that. But just simply getting your music out there, you have that power. And that is like one of the biggest benefits of this age. Yes, you get, you know, music that's not up to par sometimes and it's not great, you probably don't enjoy it, but to have that freedom, that is something that people that had deals in the 70s and the 80s, even prior to that, you know, would have dreamed of, you know. And there's so many more opportunities that have been created with being able to control your own music and be independent and stuff like that. And I think it's worth learning about the business, seeing what the possibilities are, and maximizing your success through it. Now, to the shock of many, Chance the Rapper said one of his greatest successes as a musician, Coloring Book, was uploaded via a site called TuneCore. And everybody assumed that he had major label help. He had, you know, a label helping him push his music. But what he revealed on the podcast, on Joe Budden's podcast, was that he uploaded the music himself, and the way he was able to get the deal with Apple, he called Apple up, and he has an in-house team that kind of like helps him do the day-to-day stuff, you know, just help him his infrastructure and stuff like that. But he did that deal with Apple one-on-one. He didn't have to go through a label. He didn't have to go through a publicist. He said he doesn't even have a publicist. But he didn't have to go through one. He was able to get that deal based on the work he did prior. His fan base that he has accrued over time. He was able to leverage his fan base into a deal with Apple. And I think people in the comments still didn't get it. They were thinking that, well, he's probably some industry plant, or he revealed that his parents are, one is a politician, and I forgot what he said his mom did, but they were saying that he used his parents' ties to get into the industry. No, that doesn't even like really make sense. Like, you can't even really explain that away. And most people that say that, they just don't understand how simple it is. Now, what I will say is, like, okay, I don't want to minimize the fact that relationships are the network for life, you know, just like my pastor A.R. Bernard says. But, you know, you have to kind of work towards that. It's something that you can work towards. I think they make things so unattainable that they make the record deal, this elusive thing that you have to, this is the key that unlocks the door to everything. But honestly, if you work hard enough and you build relationships as you're working hard, because building a relationship means nothing if when they actually come to you for that work, you're not able to provide. You can't, you know, show and prove what you're able to do. You can't deliver. So I think the fact that Chance the Rapper on his own has been able to develop a solid fan base and has been able to be consistent in putting out material that fans love has given him this sort of thing that many artists overlook. And I'm going to give you a word that will stick with you whenever you whenever you're creating and whenever you're involving yourself in things, or whenever you're trying to get involved in certain things that may seem to have a ceiling over it, what Chance has developed and amassed over all of these years, and that has allowed him to partner with companies and to do, you know, major things that people that are just starting out wouldn't even think about, is called credibility. Your credibility is what qualifies you for certain opportunities that other artists and other creatives would get looked over for. And I want you kind of to take that and really sit and think on that. Like, what does it mean to be credible? What does that mean? It means that what you're asking for, you've proven yourself to be able to handle what comes with it. So if Apple is going to take your music and put it on, you know, promote you and put you on the front page and put a whole splash page on, as what they call it sometimes, and you know, when you go on, when you open your iTunes and you see the new music of the day and stuff like that, there's a credibility factor to that. They trust that when they put you on display like that, if we put you out there, that you're going to generate that return, you know, whether it's money, whether it's engagement, you know, like if anybody is featured on something, you want to know that it's going to bring people closer to that brand and to that platform that you're being exposed on. So Apple has something to get out of Chance being on Apple Music and doing exclusives. Now, he did say that they don't really do that anymore, or right now it's on hold because it's kind of had a negative impact on the streaming services. But for a company like Apple or a company like Spotify or Tidal to even put you on their front page, there has to be a draw to you. You have to have a fan base, a legitimate fan base, that if you say go here, my music is available here, they're gonna go and get that music. And the thing is, he has I'm sure thousands, hundreds of thousands of fans, but really you really need a good core following that. Whenever you put out something, whenever you work on something and you put it out, people will flock to go get it. And once you have a solid fan base, it gives you that credibility to be able to ask for whatever you're asking for, and they will give it to you. And I think that is the part about being independent that scares people so much. When you're with a label and the label sees opportunity in you and value in what you offer and bring to the table, they are going to invest the money up front, and they have the infrastructure that when you want to promote a record, or you want to promote an album that you're putting out, a single, or whatever the case may be, they have those things in place where it's already guaranteed you're going to get on Apple Music, and they're going to broadcast you on their front page. You're going to get interviews with radio stations. You're going to get press releases, and you're going to get write-ups and articles and blogs, and people are going to know your name very fast. So the independent route takes longer, but don't let that scare you away. I think, again, record labels have that credibility because they've had a hold on the industry for so long. It's easy for them to leverage their relationships and to push their artists. But the downside to that is that because the label is doing all of that, they're spending money, they're spending time and resources to get you to that level. You have to pay that label back. When you're independent, you're paying yourself effectively. You know, I mean, of course, if you have a team or something like that, you have to pay certain people to kind of do stuff for you. But imagine the money that you're saving, that once you start selling really high or streaming really high, because sales is like, you know, not as the main point, but you're getting more streams as an artist and more visibility. And when you book those interviews, it's you booking the interviews, and you get to choose where you want to go interview, and you get to choose where your music plays and where it lands and who reviews it, and so on and so forth. There's a trade-off, and it really depends on what you would like to do. I'm not trying to force people to go independent. It takes a lot of hard work. It's not easy, but it is worth it, in my opinion. And I've seen that work out in my own, you know, career musically. And even just like I don't have to worry when I put something on iTunes that somebody approves of it going out. If I approve it, that's all that matters. And one of the artists that I've been able to really flesh this out with a lot is Paul G. If you haven't heard his music, go on Apple Music, Spotify. It's all there. I uploaded it myself, and we place it everywhere so everybody can have access to it. And you can also purchase on iTunes if you would like. But I've been able to connect with somebody who I believe in musically, who also believes in what I bring to the table sonically and technically, with the expertise that I have in engineering and production and stuff like that. We've been able to come together and collaborate on a few musical projects, but the largest, I guess, one to date would be our album Game Face. With Game Face, we came together and we had our goals. He told me what he wanted to do. I told him what I wanted to do with it, and we've been able to do that and more. I think, it's safe to say the streams are the ones that's, the streaming is here to stay, and we've been able to kind of, leverage that. But my main goal with doing Game Face was, of course, make some timeless music, some music that I could be proud of, a project I could be proud of. But also, I wanted to also use that music and provide opportunities for it. And specifically with music licensing, it's one of those areas that if you understand the mechanics of how licensing works and music works and how you're able to administer your copyrights and stuff like that, you can really make it beneficial for you financially. Even though Game Face is not the main topic of discussion anymore, we have moved on and released singles and stuff since then, and we're working towards our next project. The music from Game Face is going to make money for as long as we're alive, and even 70 years after we die, which is the stipulations of a copyright. If you register a copyright, you retain ownership of that copyright for your lifetime and 70 years after you pass away. Which is why if you ever heard something that's in the public domain, it's something that has reached that end of the copyright life, and it's in the public domain and people are able to use it and make derivative works off of it. But you can feed your family off of your copyright, which is an extension of your intellectual property, like I was talking about earlier. But we've been able to take Game Face, and each of the songs, even the ones that we haven't pushed as singles, I think we only pushed like 3 singles from the album, but all of the songs that we released on that album, we've been able to license it. And who owns it? Myself and Paul G. That's it. There's no other medium. We don't have to pay anybody else when we drop music. The money goes to us. Now, sales aren't a big thing in music right now. It's streaming, so you have to deal with equivalents. So you have to sell. Now you have to stream 1,500 times to get one album sale. It is what it is. People, we've had our issues with it. Coming to grips with it. But at the end of the day, there's other ways that you can use that music to make money for you. And I want to back up a little bit and really kind of dive in on some of the terms that people kind of get hung up on when it comes into independence and stuff like that. But when you are independent, you gotta come to grips with terms like intellectual property, copyright, at the word administer. You're gonna have to use that a lot when it comes to telling people what to do with your music. Mechanical rights, performance rights, royalties, percentages, splits. Like, it's the independent world is like, it can be a maze of terms and stuff like that, but once you're able to grab hold of that and what it means, it can really revolutionize your thinking and your approach to when you release music. Now you can have a plan. Like you can come to something that you're about to release and look at it and say, okay, what do I want this to do? What do I want to do with this? And how many ways can I leverage my intellectual property, my IP, my copyright? So starting off with the intellectual property, what I said before, it's the ideas in your head, all those great melodies, all those great lyrics, all those great, sounds in your head that you want to recreate. It starts off in your mind as intellectual property. When you take that intellectual property and you place it on a medium, So it could be to make it, to simplify this, let's say I take a microphone like I'm speaking into right now and I hum a melody that's in my head. You have now made a copy of what's in your head. You've made a copyright. So most people think that when you go to the Library of Congress and you register a copyright, that means that's when your copyright is created. No. As soon as you take an idea that's in your head, you put it to paper, you put it to film, you put it to Logic, you put it to Pro Tools, you put it to your voice memos in your iPhone, you put it to your voice recorder in your Android, wherever it goes. If you record a video of yourself singing the melody, that is your copyright. And the way you are able to pursue any infringement of that copyright, which is if somebody takes that idea and they try to steal it or they try to push it off as their own, the fact that we're able to record on our phones or record on our computers or our videos and that stuff is timestamped, that is your copyright. That is your proof that you came up with the idea first. Now, the way you further protect yourself is if you register your copyright. You don't receive a copyright from the Library of Congress. You register the copyright that you already have with the intellectual property that you have copied onto a different medium. And that simple thing right there, that eludes people so much. I've heard that question so much. It's like, how do you get your copyright? I want to get my music copyrighted. No, you don't want to get your music copywritten. You want to register the copyright that you already have. So just record that idea, lay it down. When you get an idea, just voice record it, voice memo it, voice note it, and that is your copyright. And just register. But then when you start to work it out, and what we did for Game Face is that when we finished the songs and we had mixed it and mastered it and all that stuff, we made sure we we registered the copyright. See, I almost slipped into it. It's such an ingrained in the conversation is that it's easy to confuse it. But what we did was once we made the copies of the music, we sent a copy to the US Copyright Office in DC, and we were able to register the copyrights for those songs. And if it was to pop up on anybody else's album, we have those registrations that we can refer to and say, hey, we are the original owners of that copyright and we are the registered owners of that copyright. So this is infringement. And that's how people are able to sue. And, that's a whole different beast, man. Like that, like I know many of you heard of the case with Marvin Gaye's estate, his family, and Pharrell, and the whole mess with that. That's how people get caught up. Like they use something that wasn't originally theirs, or it might have been a mistake. It's a lot of times I've made music that has come across matching a different style or a different song that I had never heard before. I'm just like, wow, okay, that's crazy. But if the original owner had heard it, they could have sued me for it if they registered the copyrights. But it's important, man. It's not something to be scared and shied away from. If you're the person that kind of gets overwhelmed with paperwork and stuff like that, there are people out there that are able to file your copyrights for you to register them with the Library of Congress. One notable person that comes to mind right away is my friend Rebecca Gordon. She does that stuff all the time. She does that in her sleep. Hit her up. Copywritten.com is her website. Just reach out to her and see what she can do for you. Now we go to the next level. You've made your song. You register the copyrights. You have it ready. Okay, how do you get it out there? Back then CDs was the main thing, so it was a little bit more money involved and stuff like that you had to, it cost a lot more to get your music out there. But nowadays the resources are like pretty endless, man. Like it's so easy to get your music out there. But there's two platforms that I can trust to get your music out, and they make sure you get your money from iTunes and everything like that. And it doesn't cost too much. But the main option I would say is DistroKid. I've been using them lately, and the owner of DistroKid was actually the former CEO of TuneCore, or he worked at TuneCore or he started TuneCore. I think he's founded TuneCore, I should say. So the founder of TuneCore, he opened up another online distributor for, you know, iTunes and Spotify and everything like that, called DistroKid. And man, they are definitely a service that I would highly recommend. And if you frequently work a lot with collaborators and stuff like that, they also offer splits. So if you're working with somebody and, you know, they own part of a song, you can get them their splits. TuneCore does this as well. I've heard, I haven't used TuneCore in years, but they were the first ones that I used before going to DistroKid. And there's another service that I have used, and what I used for GameFace was AWOL. Now, AWOL is a company that is a subsidiary of Cobalt Label Group. They are an indie label, but they opened a distribution platform for indie artists of any, you know, capacity. You can go and sign up through them, but they have an approval process. They have to vet you and approve you and stuff like that. But DistroKid, you can kind of sign up today and just, you know, get going. With DistroKid, there is a fee, but it's a yearly fee. It's a one-time year, not one time, it's a reoccurring yearly fee. And based on the amount of artists you need on your account, if it's just one, you can go with the basic. If you need two, there's an intermediate level. And then if you need any more, you want to run yourself as an indie label, then there's a fee for that as well. But it's all yearly, and you get unlimited releases for that year. I think that's hard to beat. If you're making money off of your music, that fee is a no-brainer. I know with AWOL works a little bit differently. They take a percentage of what you earn, but you don't have to pay up front. So it's really tomatoes. Like, do you want them to take the money up front, or do you want them to take it on the back end? It's totally up to you and whatever you want to do with that. Now, the other side to that is publishing. And this is another idea that eludes many people. But it's really because it's like it's one of those things. Like when I grew up, I wanted to know about this stuff so much, and I used to ask around, but either people didn't know or they didn't feel comfortable telling me, or whatever the case may be. But this information is freely available. I take a brief moment to recommend a book that everybody that is in the creation of music should own. This book is called All You Need to Know About the Music Business. It is by Donald Passman. I believe they're up to the 10th edition. I could be wrong. The last edition I have is the 9th. I started reading that book when I was on the 7th edition, when I was still in school. And that book changed my life. I gotta say, it reinvigorated my passion to just, be on the up and up when it comes to, the business of my music, the stuff that I create. And they tell you everything. They tell you how record deals can be structured. They tell you about publishing. They explain everything that I explained to you about copyrights and stuff like that. It's a really amazing book. If you do music, you should read this book. You have to read this book. And they talk about publishing, which is, like I said, it's something that eludes people so much, and it's crazy. But it's a beast, and it's something that you got to really kind of read up on and understand the terms. The terms is what kind of throws people off a lot. But once you are able to learn that, and I'm still learning, like, please don't consider me an exhaustive resource on the business of music. No, I just love, ownership and being in control of what you create. And I've let that passion fuel my need for information, and you let it do the same for you. But with publishing, it's amazing. Like, publishing is basically telling your music where to go, or how you want it to be presented, basically, more or less. A few of the ways that you publish music it includes getting your music on iTunes. So when you put your music up there, you are publishing it out to the world. Just like how you would publish a book, you publish your music in the same way. Now, the other side of that, the bigger mountain of that, is beyond iTunes. You can do what's called administer your publishing. And that means you can, like I said, you can determine who, what, when, where can use your music, where your music can be played, how it can be played, how it can be used, how much of it can be used, or how much in what capacity it can be used. So one of the ways that I manage my publishing is via music licensing. And the company I use for that is called Jingle Punks. Now, that name may be unfamiliar if you're just a listener of music, but if you have been in music licensing for some time, that name will sound very familiar to you, especially considering the fact that a couple years ago, Timbaland inked an exclusive deal with its parent company, Ole Music, OLE Music, and they supply music to all of the major channels, television channels, stations, and just a whole bunch of different mediums that will play your music, which counts as a public performance. That's also included in the publishing conversation as well. Like when a company plays your music on a commercial, when they put it on the show, when your music is played at some bowling alley in like Arizona or Ohio or something. I know there's people that live in Arizona, so I'm not trying to be funny. I don't live in Ohio or Arizona or anything like that. I've been to Arizona, but I'm just using that as an example. When your music plays in any remote place that is not your headphones, you are due compensation for that. And many people don't know that. If my music is played in a McDonald's, if it's played in a American Eagle store, if it's played in somebody's restaurant, it doesn't matter what it is, or if it's played in a movie, if it's part of a TV commercial, like I said earlier, even when you're listening to your music on Spotify, they pay a performance royalty, which most people do get, but they're also required to pay what's called a mechanical royalty. And mechanicals have their origins in the sheet music era. Like, sheet music is still being printed, but you know, back then when somebody would write songs and stuff like that, they would have what's called a manuscript, and they would write on sheet music. And whenever someone wanted to distribute that sheet music and make copies of it so that other people can play it and learn it and perform it themselves, before it would just, you know, kind of go around and people would just rewrite it and stuff like that. But eventually they had to establish an infrastructure where that whenever a copy was made of somebody's music, the original writer, the original copyright owner, would get what's called a mechanical royalty. Now, how does that transfer into today? When you stream a song on Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, you know, whatever platform it is, and they're playing it in various different places. So just the idea of them having your music, you know, if they're using it to promote a service of theirs, then you're owed the mechanical royalty, in addition to the performance royalty that you would get for somebody just playing your song on their platform in general. You know, like I said, what I'm saying is not exhaustive. It's just giving you an idea. It's just to open up your mind to the possibilities of what can happen. But back to Jingle Punks, I use them to license my music for, like I said, television and many other opportunities. And one of the biggest placements I've had so far is from the Game Face album. And the song, one of our singles, Game, was picked up by The New Yorker. They used it on a video that B.A.5 produced. And B.A.5, he's a guy that does a lot of the impressions of NBA players, and LeBron James included, Steph Curry included, James Harden, like, you know, a bunch of different people in the NBA. He does impression videos of them and, you know, they're really funny and hilarious and stuff like that. But he used our song in concert with a few other songs for the different players, and he used our song Game to impersonate LeBron James. And that video has garnered millions and millions of views, and as a result, it drew people to our music that we wouldn't have reached before with just putting it up on iTunes and just letting it go. That opportunity has made that song our highest streamed song to date. I think we'll be approaching 500,000 streams soon off of that very song, and it's because of all the attention that it got from that video. And now you can see how this all works together. We're independent. We don't have a major label deal. We don't have any major distribution. we're doing all of that ourselves. We're putting that music out there, and we're placing it on, we're paying to have it on iTunes and Spotify and all of the different platforms. And then I also submitted that music to Jingle Punks so that it can be used for opportunities in the licensing realm. So this is all encompassing. Like this is not what I'm telling you is what I did. Like, I'm not telling you something that's an idea. It's something that is real. I implemented it and it works. And I'm not saying that I'm rich or anything like that. I'm saying that I put myself in a position that this music is working for me even when I'm not even pushing it. And I was able to leverage, Paul and we were able to leverage the attention put on our music based on the placements that we've been able to garner with it outside of just the traditional music channels. We've been able to leverage that into increased visibility, awareness, and engagement with our music. His fan base has grown tremendously just from that video alone. And we haven't only placed that video, but that is the biggest placement we had from that album, and that's the biggest placement I've had in general for any music that I've done. And it's awesome, you know. Like, anybody that wants to use that song can use it, as long as you pay the appropriate parties. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think it's just we're at an amazing time. Like, there's unparalleled access and unparalleled opportunities, man, and that wasn't available before. You had to have certain relationships with music supervisors, and it's still good to have those, and I'm still endeavoring to get those. But the fact that I can just submit a song and it can get placed and it draws people back to the music. It all drew people back to the music, and you know, since then we've been placed on playlists because of that increased awareness. And you know, Spotify, they have, I think, user generated playlists. You know, once your song gets kind of popular, it kind of gets added in. But we've been getting added to playlists, and Spotify is our largest market now. You know what I mean? And there's no sales happening on Spotify, but you know, that increased visibility and awareness, it brings us back to that same word that I introduced you to earlier, credibility. Now that the credibility is higher, now when moving forward, we can kind of, you know, garner more support for future projects down the line, you know. And you know, the possibilities are really endless, and you have to work hard, you have to put the work in, you gotta, you know, do what's necessary. But when you know what's possible with what you create, and if you know what it is you have, then you can use that to just grow and, you know, be great in everything that you do. So I mean, there's so many more areas to cover that it's like not even one podcast is gonna cover it, you know. And you know, hopefully I would like to keep the conversation going. If there's anything that I missed and you think you would want me to talk about, I'm all ears. You let me know. I'm willing to chat about it, even chat with some other people. I don't want you just listening to me all day. It would be cool to kind of talk with some other artists and stuff like that that know exactly what I'm talking about and can speak to what Chance spoke about. And you know, before I wasn't doing a podcast, but I think, you know, it's time to kind of just explore and kind of like release all of this information that I've been reading up on and storing up on, and stuff that I've seen implement and be successful in my own life and career and stuff like that. And yeah, man, let's just keep the conversation going. Hit me up, Double A Hit Music everywhere, Facebook, IG, you know, just any way you can think of. And if this is a platform that you're on and I'm not there, and you would like to see me there, you let me know that too, and I'll look into it. But yeah, man, just doubleahitmusic.com. You know, hit me up on IG, hit me up on Facebook, Double A Hit Music. Let's just keep the conversation going. I love the awareness that people are coming into in music business. It's not unattainable. It's very, 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 very accessible. And all you got to do is just, you know, go out and get it, you know, and get all the information that you can. You can tell I love this stuff because I spent so much time talking about it. But, you know, the conversation's not over. Let's keep it going. Chance is really onto something great. He's the first artist I've seen to really succeed on this level, being independent, and I think he's not the only one that can do it. He won't be the last, but yeah, creative independence. Get into it.